In this video, we're going to be covering death bowling, specifically how to nail a Yorker and then the tactics around bowling to a guy that hacks across to the leg side. As stated in my highly energetic intro, first up we're going to be looking at how to bowl the Yorker. Before we go any further, we need to understand what exactly a Yorker is. Oxford Languages has a Yorker as a ball bowled so that it pitches immediately under the bat. If Oxford says this, it must be true. In all seriousness, for those of us that play cricket, a Yorker is simply a ball that's going to land nice and full where the batter struggles to get under it and helps to control the tempo of a game. We're going to start off with a couple of tips. The first tip being shifting your viewpoint to looking a little bit further down the pitch. So for instance, if you're normally looking at your target on the pitch, you're now going to shift that viewpoint a lot further down the pitch to allow you to bowl that ball a little bit fuller. So I've mentioned this in a previous video. When you're aiming, you want to aim small so that when you miss small, giving you that much more margin for error. Tip number 2, you can shift the ball a little bit further forward in your hand, giving a little bit more space behind. This is going to allow the ball to slide out of the hand and force it to go fuller. Now making it that when you're hitting your normal length, it goes that much fuller, giving you that little bit of an extra distance on the release point, allowing you to get close to the Yorker. Moving on to tip number 3. If you have a normal release point, what you could do is you could make your action go a little bit more round arm. This is going to create a little bit more of a sling in your action, allowing the ball to be pushed that much fuller without as much downforce on it, getting that Yorker to nail every single time. And the final tip that we could look at is making sure that your front arm elongates or stays in the action that little bit longer, allowing you to get nice and high in the action and release the ball from a higher point and further back, allowing it to travel further in the air and landing on the crease line. They say good things come to those who wait, and we have waited patiently. Thank you Ravinala for sponsoring today's video. Now that we've covered a couple of tips that will help us bowl the Yorker better in practice, we need to now go through the mentality of bowling the Yorker. It is one of those deliveries where you have to have full belief as you're running that you're going to nail it every single time. Because any doubt, the ball is going to land in the area that you're doubting the miss to, and it's going to end up going really far. And you don't want that as a bowler. So run in and from starting point in your run-up to ending point in your run-up, fully believe that every single time you release the ball, it's going to land in an area where you want it. The only other thing I'll add to this is if you do have to make a mistake, try and make a mistake fuller, because that is still harder to get under the ball, which could give you the control. Because as soon as you go slightly shorter, the batter can get under it and hit it really far. As you move swiftly along, let's look at a couple of drills that will help us be better at bowling Yorkers. The first one we want to look at is where you take an old pair of shoes and you place them down where the batter would be standing, because this gives you a visual representation of where you'd like the ball to land. Lasith Malinga from Sri Lanka used to do this, and he is arguably one of the best death bowlers in world cricket and used to nail the Yorker for fun. The second drill we're going to look at is where you take a couple of cones and a stump and put it on the crease line, the stump on top of 2 cones, creating a visual aid for us to try and hit. From there we're going to put cones slightly in front of that and then cones going deeper into the crease to show the area where we would like the ball to land. As stated earlier in the video, when we make our miss, we'd rather miss a little bit fuller to still give us that control. So you can see the cones going deeper into the crease are further back than the cones at the front of the crease. From here, you're going to run up and you're going to try and land the ball onto the stump, because that is your ideal Yorker. But trying to land it inside that box that we've created to get that consistency and to know that you can do it in a game situation. Now that we've covered the Yorker, we need to now move on to the tactics for when a batsman tries to hit you across the line at the death. First up, and we've literally just spoken about this, is the Yorker, but more specifically, the wide Yorker. Why we want to use the wide Yorker is because you can control the number of quadrants that a batter can hit the ball towards without a massive amount of risk. Running up and bowling it just inside the wide line on the crease makes it so that the batter can't get under the ball to hit you over the top for 6, and that he struggles to drag the ball across to the leg side. Sticking with the wider line, you can always go with a slow ball, preferably one that's turning away from the bat to make it that much more difficult for the batter to drag it across. We're looking to go slightly fuller, but even a back of length ball could work for this. You bowl it in there, just trying to beat the inside of the wide line, forcing the batter to try and generate power and height from across the line, swinging to the leg side. So obviously, once you've used those 2 wider options, the batter might start premeditating moving across. The next 2 options are to be used as surprise factors. The first one is a Yorker at the stumps to try and get the batter out, because once you've got the batter out, they can't do any more damage to you. Try and hit the crease line, sneak the ball under the bat and hit the stumps. The second option is, if you do have that little bit of extra pace, is running in and bowling a short ball to try and clear the front shoulder of the batter, just as a surprise ball to try and get them moving out of the line and potentially splicing the ball up and getting a wicket. But it could also get you a dot ball for free. Now that we've covered the wide channel and the straight channel from over the wicket, we can look at some options when coming around the wicket. The first option we'd like to look at is coming around the wicket and trying to beat the wide line again. This angle is going to make it that much more difficult for the batter to get across and hit the ball into the leg side. Just be aware with this that you have to have the right field set, because any miss hit is going to go into the spaces on the offside, so have the protection ready. The second option we can look at is coming around the wicket and trying to hit the batter's heels. Why this is so effective is you can still set the leg side field, but you're taking away the swing of the batter, forcing him to try and come around himself and be unable to get under the ball and hit it that far. So protecting your over, giving him the single, and then bowling to the other batter who you can control better. A couple of cons with the strategy of coming around and trying to hit the heels could be, firstly, that if you do miss the length, the batter's going to have a field day swinging through the arc and making a good connection. But also, if you miss the heels down leg side, you are going to get wired for it and have to re-bowl that ball. A massive thank you to Ravinola for sponsoring this whole video. If you guys want to see a pro player nail Yorkers when bowling to Zendon, check this video out over here.